The morning sunlight bathed the sprawling Miami home in a soft, golden glow. Waves from the Atlantic lapped rhythmically against the shore as a gentle breeze rustled the sheer curtains of the master bedroom. Gisele Bündchen moved gracefully through the space, her bare feet silent against the polished marble floors. She wasn't searching for anything in particular, just tidying, organizing, trying to bring order to the corners of her life that still felt tangled. It had been months since the divorce, months filled with reflection, growth, and the delicate dance of co-parenting, with someone who once felt like the other half of her soul. Some days the silence of the house felt comforting. Other days it pressed in like a weight she couldn't shake. Her hand brushed against a stack of boxes Tom had left behind. Most were filled with football memorabilia, jerseys, game balls, awards. As she lifted one faded Patriots cap, something heavier shifted beneath it. A leather-bound notebook worn at the edges peeked out from under a pile of Super Bowl programs. Its surface bore the faint scratches of time and use, the binding slightly frayed. Curiosity prickled at her skin. Gisele picked it up, running her fingers over the cover. No label, no name, just the weight of something intensely personal. For a moment, she hesitated. This was Tom's. Private. Sacred. Crossing that line felt intrusive. But another voice whispered, an ache that had lingered since the day their marriage fractured. What didn't I understand? What didn't we say to each other? Her thumb slid under the edge of the cover, and with a deep breath, she flipped it open. The first page greeted her with Tom's unmistakable handwriting. Neat but hurried in places, the ink slightly smudged where a hand had dragged across fresh words. The date at the top stopped her heart, January 28, 2015, the day after his 4th Super Bowl win. Everyone celebrates the win, but all I can think about is whether I deserved it, whether I've given too much to this game and not enough to the life waiting for me at home. Gisele's breath caught in her throat. She flipped to another page and another. Each one chronicled moments both grand and painfully small, his reflections on career milestones, his frustrations with aging, his doubts about being a good father, and his constant wrestling with the balance between ambition and love. A knot tightened in her stomach. This wasn't just a journal. This was his inner world, a place even she had rarely been allowed to enter. Then her eyes landed on an entry dated October 2022, just days before the public announcement of their separation. She thinks I don't hear her. Maybe I don't. Or maybe I'm just afraid of what I'll hear. She wants me present. But what if I don't know how to be that man, without losing the one thing I've ever truly mastered? I wish I knew how to tell her I'm scared too. Her hand flew to her mouth, stifling a gasp. Tears welled up, threatening to spill over. How many times had they stood across from each other, speaking in raised voices but never really hearing? Gisele closed the book momentarily, pressing it to her chest. Her heart thudded against it, as if trying to sync with the echoes of the man she once knew so intimately. She looked around the room, the photos on the walls, the empty spaces where his presence used to fill the air, and felt a wave of something she couldn't yet name. Not regret, not anger, something softer, more aching. Should she keep reading? A voice inside her whispered, yes. Her fingers trembled as they traced the edges of the page, the weight of the words pressing down heavier than she expected. Slowly, carefully, Gisele turned to the next entry. February 2021, after the Super Bowl. I should feel unstoppable. Everyone sees me as the GOAT. But inside, I feel hollow. I wonder if Gisele notices it. I wonder if the kids notice. Or maybe they always have and I've been too blinded to see. The rawness stunned her. She had always known Tom to be disciplined, focused, relentlessly driven. But this was a man unraveling in the quiet solitude of his own mind. Flipping further, her eyes caught sketches in the margins. Little doodles of a football, waves, a heart with their kids' initials inside. The juxtaposition of his legendary status on the field and this deeply vulnerable side of him was almost too much to process. April 2022, after the unretirement. She was right to be upset. I promised her I was done. I promised we'd have the time we always talked about. But the field and the roar of the crowd, it's like oxygen to me. And yet, every time I put that jersey back on, part of me wonders, what if I'm choosing the game over the love of my life? A sharp inhale escaped her lips. She clutched the book tighter, as if anchoring herself to the flood of emotions threatening to pull her under. The scent of him lingered in the pages, that familiar blend of cedarwood and ocean salt that always made her feel both safe and wild at once. It was intoxicating, painful, and comforting all at once. Every page felt like a portal, dragging her deeper into a version of Tom she had only glimpsed in fleeting moments. Then came the entry that made her entire body stiffen. September 2022, after another fight. I watched her walk away tonight and I felt something snap. Not anger, not even sadness. Just emptiness. Like I was standing on a field after the crowd has gone home. Silent. Echoes of what was, but nothing left. How did we get here? How did the people who once couldn't stand being apart become strangers sitting across a table, looking for exits in every glance? Her vision blurred. She wiped at her eyes, trying to breathe through the tightness in her chest. There had been so many nights where they had argued, about schedules, priorities, broken promises, but she never imagined that behind his stoic facade, he was writing. This, a folded piece of paper slipped from between the pages. It fluttered to the floor, landing softly at her feet. Kneeling, she picked it up. It wasn't like the journal entries. This was a letter. Her name was written on the outside in Tom's unmistakable handwriting. Her hands trembled as she unfolded it. The first line made her heart crack open. If you're reading this, Gisele, it means I never found the courage to say it out loud. Her breath caught. I never stopped loving you. I never stopped being proud of you. I never stopped being terrified that who I am, the man who needs the game, the noise, the drive, was never going to be enough for the woman who deserves peace, presence, and unconditional attention. I didn't know how to balance both, and for that, I am sorry. A sob escaped her lips, sharp and sudden. She pressed the paper against her chest, curling in on herself as the weight of years of misunderstanding came crashing down. All the moments they talked past each other, all the unmet needs, all the words left unsaid, they were all here, written in ink, etched into memory. She folded the letter back slowly, reverently, like handling something sacred. Her heartbeat thundered in her ears. One question remained, loud and inescapable. Do I keep reading? And deep within, the answer was undeniable. Yes. Gisele sat cross-legged on the floor, the journal balanced delicately in her lap. The letter still trembled in her hands, the weight of its words pressing against her chest like a vice. She drew in a shaky breath and turned another page. October 15th, 2022. I watched her walk through the door today, her face set, her eyes tired. I wonder if she knows that every step she takes away from me feels like watching the last seconds of a game slip away, when you know you've lost but can't stop the clock. Her throat tightened. Tears blurred the ink, smudging the edges of his handwriting. How many times had they fought over the same things, time, presence, promises made and broken? And how many times had they both retreated into their own corners, too exhausted or too stubborn to bridge the gap? She flipped to a section where the writing changed, slightly larger, more frantic. It was as if the emotions behind the words were spilling faster than his hand could keep up. I remember the first time I saw her, radiant, untouchable, magnetic. I told myself I wouldn't fall. I was wrong. I fell the moment she smiled. And yet somewhere along the way I forgot how to show her that. The memories surged, uninvited. Their first date in New York, strolling through Central Park. Quiet mornings in Costa Rica, wrapped in each other's arms, whispering about the future. The births of their children, moments of pure magic where everything else faded away. But alongside those were the memories shadowed by tension. The cold silences when she asked for more time together, the look in her eyes when he chose another season, another game, over family vacations or anniversaries. Her fingertips grazed the corner of another tucked-in paper, another letter. This one wasn't addressed directly to her. To my kids. Her breath hitched. Carefully she unfolded it. If you ever read this, know that every decision I made was because I wanted you to be proud of me. But I hope I didn't teach you that success on the field is worth more than presence at home. I struggled, I still do. I hope one day you'll understand that loving someone sometimes means learning when to stop. And I'm still learning. The weight of those words shattered something deep inside her. He had written this not knowing if they'd ever read it, not knowing if he'd ever say it out loud. It was as though this journal had become the vessel for all the words he couldn't bring himself to speak. She leaned back against the cool wall, staring out at the ocean through the floor-to-ceiling windows. The waves crashed in a rhythm that somehow mirrored the rising and falling of her own breath, chaotic, relentless, but soothing in its inevitability. All this time she had believed he didn't understand, that he didn't see her sacrifices, her loneliness, her aching desire for something simple. Dinners together, days without distractions, a partner who was fully present. But he had seen. He had felt it too. He just didn't know how to stop the inertia of who he was, who the world expected him to be. Her gaze drifted back to the journal. More pages waited, more truths, more wounds, and perhaps more healing. She realized now that this wasn't just about the past. It was about understanding. Understanding the man behind the headlines, the helmets, the perfect throws, and the championships. Understanding the boy who became a legend, but never stopped being afraid of not being enough. Gisele took a deep breath, wiped her cheeks with the back of her hand, and turned the page. The next page felt heavier, as if the weight of what was written had seeped into the fibers of the paper itself. October 28, 2022, the day after. It's done. The papers are signed. The headlines say amicable. The statements say mutual respect. But inside, it feels like losing a Super Bowl I didn't even get to play in. Not because I didn't try, but because I never figured out the right play. Gisele pressed her hand to her mouth, swallowing a sob. The rawness, the helplessness, it was unlike anything she had ever heard from him directly. In public, he was composed. In their final conversations, he was stoic. But here was a man unraveling in silence. I look at her and wonder, did she ever truly know how much she meant to me? I told myself I was providing. That every pass, every ring, every sacrifice was for us. But what if all she ever wanted was me, just me? Not the GOAT, not the champion, just Tom. Her vision blurred. Her chest tightened so painfully that she had to force herself to breathe. All the years spent asking him to see her, to really see her beyond the role of mother, wife, caretaker, she never realized he was silently asking the same of her. Then came the line that shattered her. If she ever reads this, I hope she knows. I never stopped loving her. I just didn't know how to show it without losing myself. Her fingers trembled as she gripped the journal. Her heart thudded wildly, as if trying to escape the cage of her ribs. Every memory of laughter, of arguments, of quiet moments, holding hands on a beach, they all came rushing back like a tidal wave, overwhelming, unstoppable. She closed her eyes and whispered, "Why didn't you just tell me?" The question wasn't fair, not to him, not to herself, because the truth was, they both had tried. In their own ways, but sometimes love isn't enough when the languages it's spoken in are too different to translate. Another entry waited, this one shorter, simpler. Today, I sat alone in the house we built together. Her perfume still lingers in the hallway. Her laughter echoes in the walls, but it's quiet now. Too quiet. I would trade every trophy for one more morning of her smile and the kids fighting over pancakes. The ache inside her swelled. She clutched the journal to her chest, curling into herself as the weight of it all threatened to crush her. This wasn't about blame, it never had been. It was about the spaces between them, the things neither could fix because neither knew how. And yet, amidst the sorrow was something else, a flicker, a warmth, the realization that while their marriage had ended, the love hadn't vanished. It had simply changed shape. Slowly she stood, the journal still pressed to her chest. Her reflection caught in the window, the ocean behind her, endless and deep like the love they once shared, and maybe, in some way, always would. For a long moment, she simply stood there, breathing, processing. Then a decision formed, not rash, not emotional, but clear. She didn't know what it would lead to, or if it would change anything. But she knew one thing for certain. She needed to see him, not to reopen wounds, not to change the past, but to share what she now understood, that beneath the misunderstandings, the sacrifices, the choices, was a love that had never truly disappeared. She took one last glance at the journal, placed it carefully back where she found it, and grabbed her phone. Her fingers hovered over his name, Tom, and with a deep breath, she pressed call. The line rang only once before Tom answered. His voice was cautious but familiar, tinged with surprise. "Hey, everything okay?" For a moment, Gisele couldn't speak. The sound of his voice stirred 1,000 emotions at once: comfort, sorrow, longing, and something softer. Something like peace. "Yeah," she finally whispered. "I was wondering, do you have time for coffee? Just to talk?" There was a pause. Then, softly, "Yeah, I'd really like that." The cafe they chose was quiet, tucked away from paparazzi and prying eyes, a place they used to go when life felt simpler, before Super Bowls, before global campaigns, before the beautiful chaos of building a family together. When Tom walked in, her breath caught. He looked different, older perhaps, a little tired, but still Tom, the man she had fallen for. The father of her children, the person who, despite everything, had never truly stopped being a part of her. They sat across from each other, hands wrapped around warm mugs. For a moment, neither spoke. The silence between them was no longer hostile, no longer filled with tension, just full of everything they'd been through. Tom broke the silence first. "You okay?" Gisele nodded, her eyes soft. I think I understand more now than I ever did." His brows knit together. "Understand what?" She smiled sadly. "You. Us. What went wrong and what went right. We were always trying to fight for each other. We just didn't know how to fight the same way." Tom's eyes glistened. He swallowed hard. "Yeah, I guess that's true." For the next hour, they talked. About the past, about the kids, about the things they regretted and the things they cherished. There was laughter, soft, hesitant at first, then warmer. There were tears too, but not the bitter kind. These were the kind that washed things clean. Neither of them mentioned the journal. Gisele didn't tell him she had found it. She didn't need to. Everything that mattered was already written between them, in memories, in shared glances, in the unspoken understanding that filled the air. As they stood to leave, Tom reached out, his hand brushing hers. "No matter what," he said, voice thick, "you'll always be family to me." She squeezed his hand gently. "Always." Driving home, Gisele felt something shift inside her. Not closure, not exactly, but a kind of healing. A realization that love doesn't always look like forever. Sometimes it looks like understanding, like forgiveness, like being grateful for what was and for what still remains. At home, the journal still sat where she left it. She picked it up, not to read more, but to hold it one last time, to acknowledge the story it held, not just Tom's, but theirs. A story of two people who loved deeply, tried fiercely, and learned that sometimes letting go with love is the most powerful ending of all. She placed it back on the shelf, her fingers lingering for a moment longer. Then, with a deep breath, she stepped away. Whatever the future held, for her, for Tom, for their family, it would be written day by day, moment by moment. Not in ink, but in presence. In showing up, in choosing grace. And as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm glow over the ocean, Gisele smiled. Because sometimes understanding is enough. If this story moved you, don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more powerful real-life stories just like this one. And trust me, you won't want to miss the next one. Click the video on your screen right now and keep watching.